All right. Hey, what's up? What's up, everyone?
Hi, guys.
Uh, hey, what's up? Welcome to another edition of Gonna See My Friends with Steven and my friend Toby, my co-host. Toby, what's going on?
Hi,
How you doing?
Stephen. Everything's good.
Yeah, everything's really good.
You
How are
doing
you doing
okay?
on a rainy Thursday afternoon?
We're going through the bomb cyclone. It's been an exciting 24 hours. We get one of these every couple of years, it seems like. So, how are you doing up there? You're getting more rain than I am up the road.
Yeah, we're on the news.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about Santa Rosa. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm worried about my relatives in Healdsburg
Mm-hmm.
because every time we have a storm like this, the flood, it always reaches their front door. They have sandbags, but it always reaches their front door, and then everything's fine. So hopefully it that's as bad as it gets.
Right.
But I remember people canoeing in the Safeway parking lot a couple years ago when we went through this, and yeah, I mean it's all right. It's cozy.
Yep.
Excuse me. Jesus. How about Luma? Is it getting a lot there or what?
Yeah, we had quite a bit of rain. We had quite a few power outages in the area. I'm not this street because we're on the same grid as the hospital and the fire department. So usually we're lucky, but
Yeah.
our good friends 6 blocks away were without power for most of the day yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's hit or miss.
Our yeah, our power lines are, I don't know if this makes any difference, but our power lines are underground,
Yeah, it does make a
right, in
difference.
our area. So we the last time we got uh what do you call it? Kicked out for the fires. I
Oh,
don't know what do you
evacuated.
call that? Evacuated. The one that wasn't the seven, it wasn't 17, it was like the year after.
Hmm.
I just stayed here because our power stayed on. So it was it was cool. It's
You're a
cool to have
rebel.
that. Hey, yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Just pull the blinds closed like you got them right now. Nobody has to know. Oh, careful.
Um, anyways, I think this week I'm excited for this week. We got a John Hughes movie that we're going to talk about. And who doesn't love John Hughes? I
Oh
mean,
boy.
especially Gen X or whatever generation that grew up in the '80s, watched all this. It's a fantastic topic. He's was so prolific. I think you're going to hit on this too, but let me just
Mhm.
give you some little highlights
Hit me with
from
it.
83 to 91. Mr. Mom, Vacation, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, European Vacation, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Some Kind of Wonderful, Playing Shirts and Automobiles. She's Having a Baby, Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck, Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, Career Opportunities, Dutch, and Curly Sue. I mean, your thoughts, Toby?
Yeah. Um, Good God, man. It's like, I mean, we don't deserve John Hughes, right? And then he was just gone.
Yeah,
We're like, what do you mean he's gone? He wrote every movie for
yeah,
throughout the 80s and well into the 90s. He was just really, really special. You remember, there's a lot of those on the list that you just listed off that he didn't direct. He directed less
yeah,
than half of those. He wrote
yeah,
for other. I mean, where he found the time to do it, he's about as Stephen King puts out 2-3 books a year. It seems like John Hughes is the screenwriter version of that at
yeah,
that time. It's so impressive to me that he was able, and every one of those is knocked out of the park. None of those are bad scripts. I mean, there's no, I don't, there isn't a Pluto Nash in there somewhere where you're like, well. So I know how much you like Pluto Nash. So I apologize.
yeah.
The first one that came to my mind.
No, no, you're good. I
Okay,
understand its place in cinema history,
okay,
so
okay,
you're
good.
good. Yeah, I mean, I think he starts out writing in this thing called Delta House in '79, which is an offshoot of Animal House TV version. That lasts 13 episodes. He writes 4 of the episodes. Then he does a couple of movies, goes back into TV, and then in '83 he writes Mr. Mom, which is going to be on this channel. We're going to talk about Mr. Mom, even though it hasn't really aged well.
Hmm.
There's some good things about it, and there's a lot of funny things. I think a lot of my humor is based on a lot of things. But then Vacation. And then his first directorial debut was 16 Candles, which he also wrote. So you have this thing where he's just cranking out movies. I mean, he wrote Weird Science over a weekend, 2 days, and um, he did that because that the studio offered him a directing. He wanted to direct. Let me see the. He wanted to direct Breakfast Club. So he whipped out this movie, gave him a movie, and then went on to write and direct Breakfast Club, which is a great movie. And I remember, I think I had talked about it earlier, probably in one of our first podcasts, but I remember wanting to go see Explorers,
Right.
and my cousin John, and we get to the movie theater, and he's like, "Okay, we're gonna go see Breakfast Club." And I was like, "What? Okay." And I was so young. I was still young enough to go like, nothing happens in this. I was like, I
Yeah.
think I was 10 or 11. So I really didn't get the allure of, but as I've kind of gotten older and appreciate movies, uh, that's a classic. I mean, 16 Candles was the first movie that I saw. Oh no, actually, it was Breakfast Club. But then I went and rented 16 Candles, and that movie uh, kind of uh, kind of made me start appreciating John Hughes and his movies. But I really wasn't uh, at that age. I really wasn't aware of auteurs or anything like that. I was just going to see movies. Um, but where did you first see this movie, Toby?
Yeah. So this is rated R,
Yeah.
and so I was trying to remember when I'm probably not in the theater, but would have been an early rental when it came out.
Uh,
It would have been a
yeah.
rental because it seems to me like this movie's been something that I watch every year at this time.
Yeah.
And so it came out, what, 87?
It came out. Yeah, 87.
87. So wouldn't have seen it in the theater because of the R rating. Wouldn't have been old
Yeah.
enough to see it. But it would have been something that we would have seen. We probably would. It wasn't a TV movie. It was probably a rental, and it would have been right when it first came out on VHS. It would have been one of those. Remember how when you went to the video store, you had to reserve it ahead of time because your local video store. I know in Forestville we had a little video store, and if there was two copies of a movie, you had to wait like a month in order
Uh,
for your number
yeah.
to come up. We didn't have Blockbuster and things like that in
Yeah.
the late 80s, unless we wanted to drive all the way to Santa Rosa, and that's just a far off land back in those days. But
You remember that? You remember when Santa Rosa was like the big city?
oh, absolutely,
Yeah. That was
a
it.
hundred
Yeah.
percent. It was like, man, all the way to Santa Rosa. It seemed like it was like
Yeah.
it was always like your parents told you it was like a half hour away. It's
Yeah.
12 minutes away, dude. It's down Guerneville
Half
Road. It's
hour.
not
That
that
was
far.
the thing. Even in
Yeah.
Healdsburg, we're going to Santa Rosa. Oh man.
Oh God,
Wow,
all day.
I'm gonna fucking celebrate some birthdays before we get there.
Right,
Jeez.
right. Exactly. We've been lied to.
Yeah.
So, but
Uh,
yeah. So it was, and it's only an R rating because of that one scene, and we'll get to it.
yeah.
It's only
Yeah.
which is the one that most people remember, the car rental scene with Edie McClurg.
Yeah.
But So this was my choice as a Thanksgiving movie because, as far as I know, not a lot. There's a lot of holiday movies out there. We've touched on Halloween. We did a whole month of horror movies, and we could have done 50 more movies
Yeah.
for Halloween. Christmas is right around the corner, and God knows there's a whole Hallmark channel filled with Christmas movies year
Yeah.
round. You can just turn
Yeah.
on your TV, and there's a whole channel dedicated to it. But for Thanksgiving, you don't. This is the only one that really jumps to the forefront of my mind, which is why, because Thanksgiving is next week, and when this pod drops, it'll be Monday of the Thanksgiving week.
Yeah.
So hopefully everybody has a chance to enjoy and also to watch this movie. Go back and rewatch this movie because for a 1987 movie, this really does hold up very well.
Yeah.
Other
yeah.
than the fact that you're probably wondering why don't they just call somebody on their cell phone. Other than that, this is you could go through this. You really could go through this hell that these guys go
Well,
through.
that's what John Hughes was inspired to write this when his flight from New York to Chicago got delayed and diverted to Wichita, and then it took him 5 days to get home.
And then
So that's why he
he
wrote,
wrote it in a
uh,
weekend right
yeah,
after that happened to him. Right,
it's something like that.
just write
And
what you know.
yeah, and that's when I watch John Hughes movies, you run the gamut of like Mr. Mom Vacation, and then you get into the teen stuff with 16 Candles, Breakfast Club,
Yep.
Weird Science, all that kind of stuff. But throughout all that stuff, it's basically what he writes is just human connection about
Yeah.
people wanting to connect, or maybe you get two sides of or two different people, and then he makes them connect somehow throughout all of his movies, whether it be Mr. Mom or, like I said, or Uncle Buck. There's always this conflict of these kind of different personalities that he's always, and at the end they always manage to kind of find common ground, which is a great thing, especially in today's climate, where there's a lot of um, divisiveness, and it just seems like that's me anyway. But and what a breath of fresh air, because back then you had, and I don't want to get into any kind of politics, but back then you had Reagan, and he was kind
Hmm.
of a, some would say a unifying figure, others not so much, but you could always go to the movie theater and you could always see John Hughes play, and you
It's
know,
a great point. It's a great point. He
yeah,
does do his ability to write people in
right, yeah,
is uh, he's a genius at that. He can write adults well. He can write children, little kids well. Home Alone,
yeah,
obviously the whole movie. The star of the movie is a 7-year-old, 8-year-old.
yeah, yeah,
Then you've got the teenagers. He's able to write the old folks really well. He's got a lot of, um, and I think what helps him do that is I think that the screenplay is a great jumping off point, but he has the ability to pick
yeah,
the best actors for
yeah,
all of these roles,
yeah, yeah,
and you see a lot of them recurring different. They have someone who's the star of this movie, like John Candy, is has a cameo in Home Alone 3 years later,
right,
and they're
right,
once
right,
again trying to get somebody home. Mom's trying to get home from Paris,
yeah,
and she
yeah.
gets it's there's a lot of similarities in here.
Well, like,
The,
yeah, like to your point, like it's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of things getting in the way of these two people or families or whoever the situation is, trying to connect them. And I think that's where, because a lot of times in real life, human, when you go through something, it's basically just that thing that's trying to make you understand whether or not you can connect with this or you can't connect with that. And I think with his movies, I think a lot of times it's positioned that way, so because that's just conflict. That's just the way you set up everything. Conflict builds character, and or it shows character, and so these stories are basically just kind of basic ideas,
that's
but he
right.
puts them in a way that is very entertaining and very compelling. So,
That's right. It's
and
it's it's not of the most complicated uh, plot. They're
right,
not. Here's your motivation for the characters.
right,
They're all. It's somewhat formulaic, but he disguises it so well in putting them in unique situations, or with a big laugh here, or a pratfall here, or just somebody having a meltdown that you totally relate to. And I mean, he'll write characters that you there's sympathetic characters like Dell in this movie is a very sympathetic character, and if you've seen this
yeah,
movie as many times as I have, and I know where this goes, and you know about the heartbreak at the end, and you're probably gonna
yeah,
when every time you go away, you take a piece of me with you, starts playing. You're just all, damn it, you know. But you are with Neil the whole time. You're like, all this guy's trying to do is get home, and
Yeah.
this moron, this oaf, who's just he's a happy-go-lucky. And sometimes when you're mad, the last thing you want to be is cheered up, and
Yeah.
you know that. But the premise of the movie is here problem, trying to get home. Everybody throw a bunch of obstacles in their way, overcome these obstacles, and at the same time deal with this with an internal conflict at the same time. And John
Right.
Hughes does that over and over and over again, but you don't realize that that is kind of the plot of all of these movies, all of
And
his
that's what makes it so
stories.
relatable,
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what makes it, when you watch especially Breakfast Club, I think
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of slow to come around to that one only because I I was young and I just didn't understand, um, just adults or humans or whatever. Because at that time when I saw Breakfast Club, it was those people just seemed so much older, as you
Right.
do when you're young, and people in high school just seem like grown up. Um, but that's when that's when I started seeing that was it kind of harkens back to like Dazed and Confused or I forget what other movie I was talking about earlier, but
Oh, Fast Times.
Fast Time. There you go. And yeah, and so as I got older, I started to kind of see myself in the different characters in Breakfast Club because it's like, oh yeah, I was at one time a nerd, and then I was a jock, and then I was kind of a burnout, and whatever it was, and so yeah, I mean, John Hughes had that ability to kind of capture, those moments or those kind of those eras in your life that you're just that are like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, I remember. Yeah, so this was Steve Martin and John Candy were in this, and
Mm-hmm.
Steve Martin was coming off of Three Amigos. Are you a big fan of that movie, Three Amigos?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Love Three
And
Amigos.
then he does Three Amigos and Little Shop of Horrors,
Nice.
which do the same numbers. Each was made for around 25 million, and each pulled in about 39 million. Coming in, not big hits, but they're hits. And then he does Roxanne, which
Ah,
I didn't see until I was probably in the 90s somewhere, late 90s, which I love.
yes.
Um, and so he was kind of coming into this, and then he also does. I think afterwards he does Parenthood and I don't know what some other movies that
Father of the
I can look
Bride
it up.
is in there, I want to say, maybe.
Yeah, and so would you say that this is like peak Steve Martin, or was that more in the '90s with Father of the Bride and stuff?
Well, I think that all depends on your taste. That depends on what
Okay,
Steve Martin you want. Because Steve
yeah,
Martin, when you watch this and you realize, I don't know, maybe you can tell me because you've got the numbers there. How old is Steve Martin when they're filming this movie in 1986? Say they film it in
and I
'86. How old is he? Because he looks the same age now than he did then. He's always had the white hair.
yeah, he's always had that. I
Yeah,
always thought he was born in '45, and this was in '87, so he was
early
43,
40s.
42. Yeah,
He's I mean, I'm 52 now, and I look at that Steve Martin on the screen, and I just think that 10 years ago, I mean, you know what I mean? I just you touched on this a bit ago, how these people always seem so much older than us. When
yeah,
you look back and go, like Red Fox was like 48 years old when he was on Sanford and Son. You're like, he was an old man trying not to have a heart attack through the whole thing, and you're like, he's 48 years old. Come on, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if we're just
Wilford
younger now.
Brimley was 44
Who?
in Cocoon. Wilford Brimley,
Oh my God, I
diabetes.
know. I know. That's shocking. Diabetes? That's shocking to me that
Yeah,
you go, they were supposed to be like in a retirement community too. And you're like, he's
yeah,
44 years old. Um, and he wasn't, he was old, a little bit older when he was in the thing. When we did the
yeah.
thing, he was, you know, he didn't have the mustache, but you're like, it didn't shave off a whole lot of years. Pardon the pun. You know, he
He was
was
born looking that way. He was like
absolutely
Benjamin Button.
was. He absolutely looked like that when he was born. That's his kindergarten picture.
He was aging backwards.
Right? Yep. Um, he so it depends. There's Steve Martin. Like my parents love the jerk Steve Martin,
Oh yeah.
or the man with two brains Steve Martin, or the is it the man with two brains, or is it the man with one
Dead
red
men don't
shoe?
wear plaid
Hmm.
is another one. Dead men don't wear plaid, I
Dead
think
men don't wear
is another.
plaid. These are all movies that I believe he spearheaded those. He was the kind of
Yeah.
the showrunner for those, because he's
Yeah.
also very musical, and he had
Yeah.
was the biggest comedian in the world prior to being
Yeah.
on in movies. He was the
Yeah.
he did the he would get up there, and he was kind of the alternate to, like, right after uh, oh boy, I forgot we were going to be talking about Steve Martin, the whole chronology of Steve Martin history here, but um, he was the biggest comedian in the world during the '70s, along with you could go see Richard Pryor, you could go see, but then he was kind of the flip side of that coin, where he would
Yeah.
be up there and he'd play like musical instruments, and
He had a
um,
big hit, King Tut.
oh
He had
yeah,
a yeah, off of his comedy album.
that's
Yeah,
right.
he was a popular and I think he was good at non sequiturs, he was just very zany and not very linear in
Zany's a
his
great way
comedy.
to describe it.
Yeah. He was on Saturday Night Live a lot. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of great skits. Yeah, he was definitely the goofy guy.
Mm-hmm. The wild and
Um,
crazy guy.
yeah, and then he did this movie called All of Me. Have you ever seen that with
Oh
Lily
yeah, all of
Tomlin
me. Yep.
and Bull? Um, I think that was it. Yeah, and I think that's where I remember seeing him that movie in Healdsburg, probably in '86. We used to have, where the Raven is in Healdsburg.
Yeah.
Have you ever been there?
Yep.
It used to be called the Avon, and it was run by this Mexican family, and it was basically a teen center. They would have a double bill of a movie. I saw Aliens and Highlander double billed,
What a
but it was a
day.
hangout. People would be walking everywhere. They'd be talking in like how we're talking or yelling and laughing out loud. It was just a hang.
I remember it. Yeah.
Sometimes, if you couldn't handle that noise, you could watch some great movies for the
Yeah.
price of it was like $4 or 250 or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
The
saw
movie
him
the
in All
movie
of Me.
you're right. The movie at the movie house was secondary to just going to the movie house. There
Yeah.
was a lot of
Well,
wandering
yeah,
around, and yeah, I
yeah.
remember.
That was just like a hang. But yeah, I saw All of Me there at that time, and I remember
Nice.
loving that movie. And then I started watching. Consequently, I started watching all of his movies. I'd never. That's when I started seeing him. Is when he got into kind of the more quote unquote, I guess, more mature comedies. I guess, or it
Okay.
wasn't so zany because I always feel I've never seen the Jerk, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, you've never seen it," but I feel like it's more back in the like '70s. It was just a different time for comedy. It was more Cheech and Chong.
Right.
The comedians getting into movies was more Cheech and Chong and that kind of thing. It was kind of just silly and Adam Sandler-ish kind of. And that's not really my brand of comedy, but I'm open to see it. I just never got around to see it.
Okay.
Uh but yeah, that's when I started. All of Me, I think, was my first Steve Martin movie, and then kind of went on there. Do you remember what movie kind of started you off with Steve Martin?
Oh, it's
Was it The
probably
Jerk?
Three Amigos. I saw Three
Oh,
Amigos in the theater at least twice, maybe three times. I was a huge, because all three, Martin Short and Chevy Chase, those
yeah.
are three of my favorites together, and that movie did not disappoint. And so I remember going back, Coddingtown Cinema, going back and
Um,
seeing it a second time and possibly a third. It's a musical. The reason why I kind of mentioned that he's very musically, Steve
yeah.
Martin's very musical, and so is Martin Short, for that matter. I don't know. that Chevy Chase is as musical as they are, but Steve Martin plays like 100 instruments, and
Yeah.
Martin Short, I believe, is he's down for whatever, and they're still down for whatever.
Yeah.
They're
He
doing
can do.
all these
He can give you some soft shoe. You know.
absolutely, and he's very a physically gifted comedian where
Yeah.
his character on Saturday Night Live with the pants pulled up and the
Ed Grimley. Yeah.
Get Brimley, thank you. I was never going to get it, so thank you for that. Is
Big Pat
hilarious.
Sajak fan. He was.
the there's the Three Amigos, the movie within the movie kind of thing, which is
Yeah.
a cool concept, which is also a musical
Yeah.
along the lines, right? This is back in
Yeah.
the old days of Hollywood, and I think it's supposed to be some filmed in the 30s, 20s or 30s, where
I
they're
think it was
silent movies.
20s because they were supposed to be silent
Yeah,
actors, right?
right.
Yeah.
But then they go
Yeah.
in, then
So
they get into these singing the talkies, right? The
there's
singing
yeah.
talkies, yeah. Where every movie that once like you have your Wizard of Oz, if you will, and
Yeah.
if we're gonna be talking, we may as well be singing too. And so
Right.
then every 5 minutes somebody's busting out into song. We don't get that a whole lot anymore. But our grandparents and our great grandparents loved it. Just couldn't get enough of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's why Fred Astaire's in 900 movies in like 2 year period, right? But anyway,
Uh, yeah. Well, hey, there's a plethora of favorite scenes. I just wanted to give you a few of
yeah,
mine, and then you
yeah,
can probably give me a few of
please.
yours. But my favorite is the beginning. Um, so the first one is, oh God, when he takes off his socks and shoes
Okay.
on the plane. Oh, the dogs are barking. That's one of my favorites. Then the absolute when I watched it this last time, I actually laughed out loud. Is when Owen, I don't gives him a ride to the train station after the first night,
Oh yeah,
and their
they're in the back of the
faces
truck.
are frozen. Oh shit. Okay. um, and then going the wrong way scene,
Oh my
which I
god.
had a friend of mine just tell me about how that was her favorite scene,
Mm-hmm.
and it, when I watched that scene, that is kind of epitomizes the whole movie for me. Is
Right.
it's just hey, you're going the wrong. How do they know where we're
Oh my
going?
god, dude, that
How
line.
do they know where we're going?
It's such a great. Like he's drunk. How do they know where we're going? It's such a. I laugh out loud at that every. Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's from the trailer. I remember that being
Yeah,
in the trailer of the movie. Oh my god, and it's such a that line where how do they know where we're going is so funny to me because it's true. And meanwhile, there's two trucks are barreling towards them because they are on the wrong side of the road.
yeah,
It's so good. I laugh out loud at that. I actually wrote it down in here. There's a few lines that I've written down in here that they're mostly Dell's lines.
yeah.
Um, but those are great. The opening, the beginning of the movie that starts this whole thing off. They're in a
Oh,
they're.
yeah.
I'm sorry,
They're
you
in a
you
meeting.
weren't done. You were
No, no,
still
no.
doing your
Those
okay.
are a few, just a few, and you can
Okay.
kind of tell me more yours.
The movie starts out in a boardroom, right? And he's in advertising. I'm assuming he's like a an advertising. He's a one of the
Marketing.
madmen, so to speak. But he's
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Chicago. He's in New York to pitch the lipsticks or whatever it is that they're trying
yeah,
to sell on these big poster boards, and nobody says anything for like 3 minutes. There's no
yeah,
dialogue at all for like the
yeah,
first 3 minutes, and everyone's looking around. It's like, and, they're all trying to get the heck out of town to go home for Thanksgiving. And he leaves something behind, and he talks to his buddy, the guy who's his friend in the who played Ferris Bueller's
Kevin Bacon.
father.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, yeah,
The boardroom guy. I don't know that he says anything in that whole meeting.
yeah.
Maybe he says we'll come back after Thanksgiving or something. I don't remember. He looks it looks like Nathan Lane, but it's not Nathan Lane. The guy
Yeah,
sitting at the big desk who can't
yeah,
decide which one of these posters he likes. And they go out onto the street, and Kevin Bacon tries to steal his cab, and then you're like, Kevin Bacon's in this movie for like 2 minutes, and he's like fifth build on the,
yeah.
which is strange to me because I thought I had forgotten that he was in this movie.
Well, I think they were filming. I think they added that when they were filming.
What, Footloose?
She's having a baby,
Oh,
and so that's something I don't know. We could probably look it up trivia wise, but I think that's because I heard that they're it's in the same universe. It's in the same. Um,
okay.
yeah. So
Because that's a John Hughes. That would make sense
yeah,
because he does like to
yeah,
use a, like Edie
yeah,
McClurg's character was, he came up to her during um, Ferris Bueller's Day Off and said, do you want to be, the next thing we're doing is, do you want to play this role? And he gave her
yeah,
she didn't have a script for it at all. He just
right,
made it, he had her ad lib it. And
yeah,
she came up, the whole conversation that she's having on the phone is
yeah,
just her ad lib. I don't cook.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
is so good, and she's so good. I mean, she obviously had a huge part in Ferris Bueller, and she's amazing in that. Her whole Midwest. She's basically playing herself.
right. Well,
Right.
she ad libbed some lines, some iconic lines on that movie too. Ferris Bueller.
Of course,
Um,
yes, yeah.
yeah, she's great. She's just great. Yeah.
Oh, she's so great. Um, so Kevin Bacon wasn't expecting to see, because you were, maybe we're jumping a little ahead. I was going to ask you about and if I'm jumping too far ahead, let me know. Your
No.
Klay Thompson Game 6 cameo, if you have one chambered. There's a lot
Well,
to pick from.
yeah, I think. Well, the obvious choice was obviously Edie McClurg, but um,
Right.
I
That's the
wanted to
obvious
do
choice.
Owen the beginning, and he's like,
Yes. What's his name? The actor's name
Owen.
is, and he's been in 100,000
Oh,
things.
yeah, he's let me see, Dylan Baker.
Dylan Baker, thank you.
And when I see Dylan Baker, have you seen this movie Happiness?
Yes.
Oh my god. He plays the I'm not even gonna say the word, but he plays the sick guy in that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the many sick people in that movie. That movie, like, I have to take a shower after I watch that movie. It's
Yeah.
just so dark.
Yes.
Um, but he plays, he's putting all the sleeping stuff in the tuna sandwich. It's just so every time I see him in movies like where he just plays a normal person, I'm just like, I don't know.
His,
The fans, people listening to this, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about.
yeah,
But
if you know, you know.
yeah.
His, when he is picking them up, he's the son of the motel owner who's
Oh,
going to
that's
give
what
him
it is.
he's going to
Yeah.
give him a ride to the train station. Train don't run out of Wichita. That whole thing where he goes to shake Steve Martin's hand, but he wipes the spit off, is ad libbed. And Steve Martin, you can see him shake his hand and then turn away. And they had to cut it right there because Steve Martin like immediately ran to the bathroom, and the whole place, it
Yeah.
just, it's in the trivia notes. And I'm like, that's why that's so good. He ad libbed that on the spot, and Steve Martin was like mid handshake and
Yeah.
was not expecting it. And he said it was the most disgusting thing. Oh God, that's so good.
That is,
Um,
yeah, that's my Clay Thompson Game
that's a
6
good
award
one.
recipient. Yeah.
I had forgotten that Ben Stein is in this, as well as he's got, as the,
Yeah.
in Wichita,
Yeah.
as the PA announcer.
Yeah.
Of course, he has just come from Ferris Bueller. And so it's not surprising that you see the last movie that he did, you're going to see some of the same people. Hey,
Yeah.
before you
Yeah.
go home, I got one more thing for you to do.
Yeah. Right,
Completely
right.
different. Yeah. Um, John
Well,
Hughes
he's
does.
always writing.
Yes.
he's such a prolific writer. He's like, hey man, check this out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when you're
How
in
do you
that state of flow for
how do
so
you say no
long,
to him?
yeah, yeah,
Right? It was only
that's
like
right.
probably a couple hours. Just and there's so many people. There's so many extras in this movie. I was looking around. Oh, another one that I hadn't noticed until recently was the old man with the mustache on the airplane is the same old man with the mustache from Home Alone, where
Oh yeah,
when she's trying to get home from Paris and she says, "Oh, you can have these earrings," and she's got lots of earrings, the dangly kind, and I'm
yeah,
like, that's the
yeah,
same guy.
yeah,
So good.
yeah. I just saw he was in some Twilight Zone episodes. I
Yes.
saw this YouTube video that it was so. This is how deep I go into YouTube, but it was like um uh Twilight Zone actors that were in John Hughes movies or
No
something like that.
way.
Yeah, and so they were show like the episode of Twilight Zone. Sorry, the episode of Twilight Zone, and then they would show the part in the John Hughes movie. It's just random. You'll find random stuff on YouTube, man.
You just got to know
That's
how to find it, and you know how to
yeah.
find it.
You great callback.
Thank you.
Uh,
That was you,
so
buddy.
what,
That's
what?
all
So
you.
those are yours. Then what are yours specifically? Do you have two? Let's see, give it two.
Two
Clay
scenes.
Thompson. Yeah, two recipients of the Game Six Clay Thompson Award.
Okay. I think it would be, since the old man doesn't have any lines, it's not him. I think that it would be, you know, Kevin Bacon isn't necessarily a cameo because I mean it's hard to say. I would have said Michael McKean, but he's like fourth
Yeah.
build, and he's in the
Oh,
movie for I believe less than 5 minutes, and he's
yeah.
as the trooper that pulls him over. That interaction between Michael McKean as the state trooper and John Candy, the way he's describing this car that is destroyed, is just so precious to me. He's like, do you really think this car is suitable to be on a state highway? Yes, I do. Yes, I really do. And it's just, and you
We don't
know that
have any. Yeah.
he's all
Go
like
ahead.
he and knowing as far as we've come along with Dell at this point, he honestly believes that this car is we're good to go. He of course he couldn't tell how fast they were going because all the gauges are melted. He's all and you have no
The
working
radio works.
instruments, not a one.
The radio works. Don't ask me how,
Don't
but
ask me how, dude. So and it's the I think it's the well no that was a convertible, but they made it look like it was green with the wood side paneling. It's the family truckster
yeah,
from
yeah, from
Vacation,
Vacation.
but only it's a convertible. But that
Right.
was not done by accident. He wanted it to look like the family truckster. Callback to
Yeah.
a lot of callbacks in his movie. They're so good. There's so many Easter eggs. If you got to know how to find them.
Yeah.
They're pretty obvious. They're not hidden that well. His Easter eggs aren't hidden that well.
Yeah.
Um, oh, they're riding in the back of the truck, and he goes, "What do you think the temperature is?"
Yeah. That's
One,
when.
one.
And then
Oh, they're in the back of trucks. Half the time in this movie, they're in the find themselves in the back of a truck. It's just frozen. He's like, just think you'll be home in just a little under 3 hours. He's just,
well, they're 140 miles away from Chicago
yeah.
in the first third of the movie, and you're like, oh, that's a little under 3 hours, 2 hours, whatever, 2 hours and some change. That's nothing. And then you spend the rest of the movie just getting lost, or like just getting stranded, and oh my
So the
goodness,
fact that this actually happened to him and it took him 5 days,
yeah,
there's got to
that's
be
what the trivia said.
there's
Yeah,
some truth to this. That's what I read as well. That if it's in the 80s, it probably did take that long to get from point A to point B. If you're and had they just waited at the airport until the morning, the flights were going out. They were
yeah,
saying that they were about to open the
yeah.
LaGuardia was being opened back up again, and or O'Hare was being opened back up, so they could have landed if they just spent the night in the airport originally. They would have been home that morning, the next morning, but instead they go through all of this, lose all their cash, all their credit cards, but they gained friendship along the way.
Yes,
That's
that's
right.
that's it. That's that's interesting because do you ever see those like there's this videos on YouTube where they show a movie and if the main character just made the different choice, the movie's over.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and it's like it's like 30 seconds long of like John Wick. He doesn't kill the dog. It's like, or no, he asks him how much for your car. He says 700 grand. Okay, and then it
done.
shows the ending credits,
Right.
stuff like that. I
It's
think
all
with this
produced by Michael Bay. Um,
this
Luke
one,
Skywalker.
all it has is, hey, do you want to just stay at the airport overnight? Okay. Then end credits.
That's it. The end.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker, when he's first shown the lightsaber, at one point looks into the barrel of the lightsaber, and if he were had to turn it on, it goes through his head. The end. There's no more Star Wars. There's no Star Wars at all. I would have been like, yeah, okay. Um, there's a lot of those where you're like, all you had to
Yeah.
do is this one
Yes.
thing, and that sets all of this in motion. Had you just taken 5 minutes to stop and think about what you're doing, none of this would happen. But then we wouldn't be on. We wouldn't be
Yeah.
talking
Then you
about it.
don't have a movie.
Then you don't have a movie. Exactly right. Uh, one of the unsung lines that I wrote had written down that I had forgotten all about was, um, "I've never seen a guy get picked up by his testicles before." Um,
And the
they
voice he has after.
what? Yeah,
His voice.
the guy, they and then they have a kind of a spat the first night when you had mentioned that he's washing his socks out in the sink.
Oh, yeah.
Disgusting. He's used up all the towels. There's one like washcloth left, and he's trying to dry himself off with this little thing.
Yeah.
And the room is destroyed. This bathroom is destroyed. Now we've all been on road trips with a buddy, and we've known that person. We may
Yeah.
have been that person, looking back on it, going, "Oh yeah, I wasn't not very congenial of me to have. Maybe I could have done a little better job, like mopping up." We've had those roommates before. Um, we've been that a younger brother, or older brother, sibling before, where
Yeah. Yeah.
you want to be the first one in the bathroom. In other words,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then the middle of the night, they're snoring, or Adele's snoring, and he turns the light on, and he just lays into him, and they kind of gripe back and forth at each other, which they do again later in the movie. But he's like, "Well, say something about me." And he goes, Neil's ragging on Dell, and Dell's like, "Well, you're not perfect." And he goes, "Okay, well, what about say something about me?" And he says, "You play with your balls." And he's like, "I do not play with my balls." And Dell says, "Larry Bird doesn't do as much ball handling as you in one night." I was like, "What? Stop. Pause."
Oh,
I had forgot. I had forgotten. That is, oh,
my goodness.
right. There's some
Geez.
really good just back and forth banter. He must have just been cracking himself up at the typewriter writing some of this stuff, because these were not ad libbed lines necessarily. Some of this is right out of the script. It has to be.
Right. Right.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
That's that this movie's full of that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't seen this movie probably in a good 10, 15 years. I
Okay.
haven't really seen this, but I always, I could always, when I go back, when I watched it this week, I watched it twice. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that scene. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, and then the second time, well, the first time I watched it, it was like kind of watching it for the first time, but you just knew what was coming. So
Right.
all the little bits that they do are just funny, and you kind of like seeing them for the first time because you hadn't seen it in a while. And then the second time, I just watched just to make sure I had a grasp on the scenes that I wanted to talk about. And it's still, it's still as funny as ever, man. still holds up. Like you said, it still holds up, even the comedy today.
That's the comedy's definitely there. There's a lot of getting kicked in the nuts. When the car is destroyed and Neil's laughing at Dell, and he's like, "You got yourself this time because I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you got to turn this car in. How you got to turn this car in with the way you rented it?" And he goes, "Well, actually, I used your Diners Club. Somehow your Diners Club card got into my wallet, which is
Uh,
weird." And then he's like, "But then I put it back after we were getting gas." And he goes and they hug. He's like, "Are you mad at me?" And you see the arm go back and punch him in the gut. That's which was also from the trailer. I remember the trailer a lot. The trailer seemed to be on a lot. And knowing that it was rated R, I wasn't going to be able to. That's probably why I remember that I did not see it in the theaters, because the trailer was on all the time, but didn't go get to see it in the theater.
right.
So those kind of when usually the trailer bits aren't the funniest part, but when they do come up, you're like, classic
Yeah.
punch, and then
Yeah.
he turns to storm away and he trips over the the, he forgot the trunk was
Trunk.
right there, because
Yeah.
you want to storm off, but you don't want to storm off, but then also hurt yourself at the same time. So that's the little
Well, you
things like
saw.
that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you saw how the Diners Club guy, because they got mixed up at the hotel earlier. So he Dell uses his, and then Steve Martin's like, oh no, let me. So the guy takes and you see it. They show it. The guy takes the card, gives it to Steve Martin, or no, puts it down, puts Steve Martin's in. Steve Martin grabs the one that he put out, and then that's how.
That's how they get switched. Okay.
Yeah, that's how it gets switched. But yeah, I mean, it's like you just feel that frustration that Steve Martin has in that scene too, when they watching the car burn. And he's just like, oh my god, he did it to you, or you did it to yourself finally.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great scene. That's an awesome scene. um let's see, what other good scenes we have. We got I think the scene at the diner, that's right before the airport scene, right? That's right before, or yeah, that's right before he chews out Edie McClure. He
Right.
tells him, "Oh, I think we should go our separate ways." Oh
Right.
yeah, yeah. Oh no, no, yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
whatever.
right.
Yeah, that's
That's right. You need to have a
that's
diner
not.
scene. You need to have a
Yeah,
diner scene to establish that. You can, that's now they're
yeah,
going to go their separate ways, and and Del is really hurt by that.
yeah, yeah. Because the ending, you know how it ends. So everything that happens in that movie, you kind of see of like, ooh,
Right. It's not a
if
huge
they
mystery.
come,
It's
yeah,
right, and you get to the if it is the first time you're seeing this. Sorry, spoiler alert for a 40-year-old or 37-year-old movie, but the Steve Martin has talked about this, and he keeps all the screenplays that he's done in a library in his house, and he goes up to
uh-huh,
the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles one and pulls it off the shelf. And the speech that Dell gives in the bus station at the end of the movie, when Steve Martin comes back and realizes this guy isn't. I don't think he's actually going any. He's not going
yeah,
home to his wife that he adores
yeah,
with his trunk full of shower curtain. What are they? Rings? Shower curtain rings?
rings, yeah, yeah,
He's not going anywhere, and this dawns on him. So he gets on the subway, goes back, gets on the L train, goes back to the bus station, and sees him in there. That speech that Dell gives is actually much longer, and before they cut it down to just the "I like me" part.
yeah, right,
Um, and Steve Martin can't tell this story without breaking down because he misses
yeah,
his friend, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so that one's really touching. That's the one where the whole kind of the mood of the movie becomes more of a, hey, remember, this is Thanksgiving. It's about being with family and
Yeah,
giving thanks for what you have. Um, and he's not going to let this guy just sit in a bus station on Thanksgiving and go nowhere. and he's
Right.
Dell's worn him down. That the motel scene where he's the night before the before Thanksgiving, where he looks out the window and he sees that Dell's just sitting in the car. He's probably going to freeze to death sitting in the car, and he brings him
Oh
in, and
yeah.
they
Yeah.
drink all the mini bottles, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they get a little tipsy that night. Where when you hate this person, you've grown to absolutely despise this guy, but because the situation has put you together, at a certain point there's a flip that comes in, and I think that's actually,
Yeah.
some people have thought he would never be like this. I he's Neil's actually a human being,
Right. Right.
and he's real close to home at this point. He's just exhausted. He's all of the things, right? And he looks out there and he's looking at this guy going, he's this is really sad. Like, I think he feels sorry for him. But then
Well, he
they
has an
end
extra
up
bed there
becoming,
too.
what's that?
He has an extra bed there too.
There's an extra bed. And he
Yeah.
doesn't let him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Continue.
only time they have a room that they're not in the same bed together. Where's your other hand between two pillows? Oh,
Yeah, I think that switch is um I think a lot of people are just they get blinded by their own kind of, goal or agenda or whatever it is. And I think when you kind of, what kind of when you get when you go through all this like conflict, um and you get tired, part of that is probably tired. You just don't have the energy for that kind of resentment. So I think at some point, people, if they go through enough shit, they're just like, I can't. No, wait, hold on. I have an extra bed, dude, sitting out in the car, cold. So I think that's when things start to kind of warm up between them. And I want to know where they got all that alcohol. Is that Dell's thing or is that
I
a
don't know.
hotel? Yeah,
I'm
but
assuming
left it at it.
there's a mini fridge that they're just gonna drink everything in the mini fridge, but it is kind of a it's
Yeah,
not explained, but I've always
right.
just assumed because there's wrappers all over the bed. I think they're just eating whatever's in the room because at this point, who cares?
Yeah, yeah,
We're not.
that's
They've
true.
got no money. They've got no credit cards. I mean, this was a very expensive trip to take the planes, the trains, and the automobiles. They've
Oh well,
destroyed a
that's
rental car. I
yeah,
mean, it's hugely expensive. I mean, he's looking at tens of thousands of dollars.
yeah.
So good.
Though that's another one last thing.
Hmm.
Is that this was a day and age too where going to banks was kind of a pain in the ass, and not everybody took uh, or a lot of businesses took personal checks, so you had to carry a large amount of money. So when they at the first hotel, they get, I had $700 in my wallet. What
Right.
happened? It's like, people carrying around that much money is nowadays. I mean, I don't know. Maybe rich people do, but I hardly carry any cash in my wallet. It's all just debit because, you know. Anyways, like Toby said in the comments,
Yeah. Tell us in the
we got
comments how you finagled
we
some
got
tips.
one comment last week. Did you see that?
Oh, I didn't see which platform on the
Well, he
YouTubes.
commented because last week we were talking about Heat. You started talking about Michael Bay and Transformers, and I was like, is he kidding? And
Oh,
so
I
I just
said
kind of
Michael. I said Michael Mann made. Yeah. So somebody
yeah.
correct me on that because
Yeah,
I
someone's
thought of
like,
that in the
"No,
middle of
that's
the
you're
night.
thinking Michael
But
Bay.
somebody, yeah, I'm
Michael
all.
Mann's
Oh wait,
usually
it's
on
Michael
brand."
Bay. It's good. Whoever you are
So,
out there, thank you for that. And you're
yes,
absolutely right. And I
yes.
apologize from the bottom of my heart. It'll never happen again. It probably will happen again, but that's fine. Well, just keep hitting us with the comments. And then also, how
Yeah,
did you get
man.
some tips that time? I'll tip you if you tell me. Throw your Venmo up there, man. I'm good. I'm not afraid to
And
throw a little bit
also
around.
people that are listening and people that enjoy, please like and subscribe. I know I never thought I'd be
Good
saying that
call.
this
I know,
day,
right?
but it helps out the channel. It helps out us. It allows us to keep doing this. I mean, realistically speaking, I'd still be doing this without any kind of like and subscribes. But you know, we're thinking about merch. We're thinking about some other things. We're gonna have. I think I said this last week as well. Maybe I'll just reiterate it. In the new year, we're gonna have some guests. Yeah, we're gonna have. I don't know. We're just
Yeah,
gonna have
let
a
us
lot of
know if you want to
fun.
be a guest.
Yeah, if you want to hang out, talk some movies.
Maybe
You know,
maybe we'll take some calls live on air.
I'll figure out how to do that. We'll do that. Well, maybe some emails. We'll
Yeah, for sure.
drop the email and we'll read some emails on the air and we'll respond. And why are you guys suck so bad?
Yeah, no.
Okay, we can.
Why? Well, how come you guys only have 13 episodes? Right. If you're here, you're an OG. Yeah.
Yeah,
And if you're going to give us the feedback, we'll
well,
we've had
listen.
some I get feedback from the friends, and not posting on the boards. Just like I was telling you earlier in the week on Sundays. I get feedback, and I'm like, put it on the board. Comment on
Yeah,
the YouTube comment section. There's the internet. It's a big place. There's lots of room. It's not like you're going to max out your characters, man. Just
yeah,
post it up there. We're down. Or hit us on the socials.
yeah,
Hit us over
yeah.
there. Tell us what you want to see. If there's movies you'd like us to do. If you have here's a suggestion that our friend Scott Taylor said he really liked that you had started. What I think in like episode 1 is if you were to remake this movie today,
Oh yeah, we didn't
who
hit that
would
today.
you have
Yeah,
as Dell and who would you have as Neil?
yeah.
So post in the comments who you'd like to see. Originally, it was supposed to be John Travolta as Dell
Oh really?
and Tom Hanks as Neil, but Travolta and Tom Hanks couldn't do Neil because he was doing Big at the time. So, but the studio said, not Travolta, he's box office poison.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's where our friends came up with where box office poison, which was in a band. Speaking of our conversation we had with Brett a couple weeks ago,
yeah,
there's so many of our buddies had there was a lot of cool bands. Box
yeah.
office poison we didn't touch on. Jared's other band other than Echo Dine.
The Echo Dizzle. Yeah.
Yep. So I don't have a good thought on who I would put as. I think the I don't know that the Tom Hanks and John Travolta works nearly as well. I could see Tom Hanks because Tom Hanks is always good as he's always kind of the straight man, especially back in those days where he's the straight man, but he's hilarious at the same time. Right? Things are happening to him and he's reacting to them.
Right, right.
Um, like if Funny Farm's a good example of that, where the house is really the main star of that movie, but and he's
Oh, that's
oh no,
that's funny.
Money Pit. I meant Money Pit.
Yeah,
Funny
Money Pit.
Farm. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Sorry, Michael Bay. Um, brought to you, produced by Michael Bay. Um, the uh, I like the dynamic of a skinny guy and a larger guy in these
Yeah.
roles. I think it makes it funny because that they put it on the poster. Is
Abbott Costello. Yeah.
so I don't know how Travolta and Hanks wouldn't have been nearly as funny. And before we started rolling here today, I was like, I got nothing when it comes to who would you is there anybody that you can think of that if you were to film it today, who would you film it with?
Today.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. That at that time, let's see, I or today, um, I don't know. There's a couple of remakes later, early in the 2020s. Um, I think Selena Gomez and her production company wanted to remake it.
Really?
Um, yeah, but I not to say that she was going to be in it, but um, let's see. I read something. Let me look something up really quick.
I mean,
I
Tommy
read.
Boy is a little. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between like Tommy Boy and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. There's a lot
Yeah,
of the car is destroyed. It's a fat guy and a skinny guy, and they're going on road trips and all this. A name that comes to mind to play Dell would be not that he's a big fat guy, but he's just a large man. Dave Batista, I could see playing a
Oh
Dell.
yeah,
Um, who's I mean, Dave Batista is just a gift from God, right?
yeah.
Um,
What a great guy. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I would think I'd have to sit and think on that one because I
yeah.
wasn't prepared. I have to put that category back in. Let me write a note here.
And Scott, when he comes on with us here in a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
he'll
Scott Taylor coming on December 5th, and we're either going to do Say Anything or Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Maybe we'll put up a poll
that's a good
on
idea.
Instagram, and people can vote on that. And either way, man, it's going to be great. Scott's a great guy. It's funny, witty, and he had a radio show in college, so I know he knows this stuff. So, anyways, yeah, I think that comes up on the end of this, man. This is a great episode.
It was. It
I
was.
loved it.
Before we go, Steve, I had a
Sure,
question for you as far as
sure.
Thanksgiving, since this is our Thanksgiving. Is there anything that you have traditionally in your family? And I'm not talking, oh yeah, we make turkey and forget the whole menu part. Is there a Thanksgiving tradition that your family used to do that was not necessarily food related? It could be food related. Oh yeah, we always make something, instead of doing the traditional turkey stuffing, cranberries, all that. For our Thanksgiving, we always did something. Is there an activity that your family did? Tell me about what was Thanksgiving in the Garsha world there.
When we were kids, we had a
Hmm.
big family,
Yeah.
and it's sad because it's a lot of drama now, so it's not the same. But when I was a kid, we used to play, football
Oh
or
my
wiffle
God.
ball, and have the grown-ups come and play with us. You know, that was the big thing.
Out of
I
the high
think we would
school.
do that. Yeah, we would do it in our front yard.
Okay.
We had a tiny front yard, but we still made it work. Or the backyard, depending on what it was. Backyard was usually baseball. Front yard was usually football.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, sometimes we'd go to. I think one of the last times we did that, we did a touch football, and we played out in Pioneer. I think we went to Pioneer and played
How
there,
funny.
and that was yeah. We used to do that. I think about 15 years, 20 years ago, we stopped doing that stuff,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that was what we look forward to. Now, I mean, I can't even throw football. Oh, I throw a football. My shoulder comes out of its socket, swells up. I got weeks of rehab. you know, it's just like,
I hear
you
you.
know.
I
I
hear you.
mean, I played last year for Christmas. We played at my cousin's. He has a baseball camp, and he has like small fields and stuff. And we played wiffle ball. And my back by the third inning, my back was done,
Oh my
and
God.
it was just pain. It's
Yeah.
just pain to go out and do that. And at the time, I was a little more in shape than I am now, and my back just is just done. Anything I
Gotcha.
do, it's like, how about you? What did you guys used to do?
That's so funny because that's what I have written down. That was our thing. We would go out, and it
Uh huh.
was our family's not big enough to have a huge football game, but we would meet on Thanksgiving morning with a bunch of people from either the youth group, the church
Uh
youth
huh.
group, so same age groups with all the parents, and then also some family. And we would have 20, 30 people out there playing two-hand touch
Yeah.
football from like 10 to 12, and then get, just out there running around.
Yeah.
That's so funny because football, that was I think a lot of people now, my brother and sister-in-law, they do the 5K
Oh yeah.
they drive down to Elk Grove and do the Elk Grove
Oh.
Turkey Trot.
Okay.
And they run a 5K, and I think that's becoming more and more popular. You see a lot of people doing that more and
Yeah.
more popular. But there was a lot of football, throwing the football around was a lot. I think a lot of families did that because
Yeah.
yeah, that's what comes to my mind is we wake up on Thanksgiving morning and just it would be cold. You'd have your long sweatshirt on, and then after about 45 minutes, you're down to your t-shirt and you're muddy and and it's just, oh yeah, so great. Great memories
Fun
from that.
times, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I look back at those times and that's when, I mean, at least in our family, that's when our family kind of everybody got along, and or maybe they didn't, but it just seemed like everybody kind of
Yeah.
showed up and ate, had laughs, and then we would go home. And there's such an absence of that now,
Yeah.
where everybody's kind of, it's weird because, and I don't want to get too deep about it, but it's weird because we have such a big family, and a lot of my aunts and uncles, and even some of my cousins have married people that don't understand the big family dynamic, and so they're kind of taken away and kind of they go off on their own, like, and they marry somebody that has either, like, they have one brother, or they don't have, or they're their only child, so they see the big family and they just like, and
No, I get
so
it.
that's what, yeah, so that's, it's just a weird thing. And so, but yeah, that was fun times.
Hmm.
Football, especially football, man. We get the little cousins in there and go ahead,
Yeah.
go, 1, 2, yeah.
Yes,
And how
that's right.
happy they'd
Just
get
tell them to
when they
go
could score a
long.
touchdown. Yeah,
Having and
keep
having
going.
having been at a family function of yours or two, I can attest that you do have a very large family,
Yeah.
and mine is not that large, but we played over was it your aunt's place that we played in the
Oh
backyard?
yeah. Yeah,
Remember?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. That was my Aunt Mary. Yeah.
there you go. Yeah,
Yeah, we played there. Um, yeah. Yeah, that was a good time.
good times.
A lot of all my cousins were like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah,
They were so
yeah, it was
stoked.
fun. It was a fun day.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So at the end, before we end, I don't think I ever saw the post credit scene
oh,
at
I
the end
haven't
of
seen
this
it.
movie.
Holy shit, I didn't
I
know this.
didn't see it in the theater, so I wouldn't have stuck around. But it makes sense because there's a post credit scene at the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. This is the very next movie after Ferris Bueller, so it makes sense that there would be a post credit scene. But there is a post credit scene all the way at the end, and there's not like once the and it's the guys back in the boardroom, sitting at his desk, looking at all those poster boards with a huge turkey dinner on his desk just by himself. He doesn't say a word, and he's holding the boards up like this, and so random. I mean, why is it even in there? I don't know, but I had to read about it, and I went, wait, there's a post credit. It was on the VHS tape. It was in the theatrical version, but then they took it off the DVD. But if you
Oh, really?
download it or rent
Yeah.
it online, it should be on there. For super nerds like me,
Yeah.
I watched all the credits all the way to the end just for the 1 minute of him he's looking back and forth at the put. Still can't decide which of these lipsticks that he wants on the poster board. So there you go.
Oh man.
Happy
And there you
Thanksgiving.
have it, everybody. The
Yes.
ending. I never knew that one. So,
No. How would you
oh,
know? Why? Who's going to sit through all of these credits?
oh, sweet. All right. Well, everybody listening, everybody watching, thanks for watching. This was a great episode. I had a lot of fun. I'm gonna put up some polls, and yeah, keep listening, like and subscribe, and do all the good stuff. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, Toby.
Thanks, Steven. Happy
All
Thanksgiving,
right.
buddy.
All right. You too. Bye.
Bye.